All right, we are now officially live. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hey, Naima. We ain't gonna make this
Hey
formal like a
girl.
podcast. How
Hey
you doing?
girl. I'm great. How are you, Sabria?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. I was mentioning, I hope the audience is tuned in now. And I'm gonna pull it up on my screen. But Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is the sorry, one second. This is the Sabrina Milton of the Muslim One podcast for those that tuned into our earlier live 7 p.m. with our brother Khalil. We are now here. We're resumed with our beloved sister Naima Abdullah, a good friend of mine, mashallah. And I'm just so happy to kind of come back here on the screen. For those that were with our last live, it was choppy. We had some technical issues. I didn't want it to feel like a podcast. I wanted you guys to feel like we were in a live, but it didn't work out. Okay. So we are here on our streaming platform, and we're hoping that it could be more beneficial for all of you guys. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome. This one, it's called using the kids to hurt me. So we're going to talk about this. This is my beloved friend Naima, and Naima is a phenomenal sister out here in Atlanta with me. And she's just a phenomenal parent and human being all around. I know she works as a parent advocate. She has a lot of awesome strategies and methods in order to kind of, I don't want to say get your kids in line, but effective strategies for parenting. Is that what you would say, Naima?
Yes, definitely. Yes, indeed. And a lot of that comes from my early childhood history and background, and then also from experience of raising my girls majority of the time by myself, as a single mother. So yes, those experiences have taught me a lot, and I like to share that as a parent coach. That's what I do now as far as being a nanny that has been temporarily on hold because the pandemic interrupted that, but I kind of transitioned to being a parent coach.
Absolutely. So you're the right one for this conversation. So, Naima, we've been
Alhamdulillah.
getting a little deep. Okay. So we had Brother Khalil on. He gave the brother's perspective. He was phenomenal. But we got into
Alhamdulillah.
all kinds of, conversations. We talked about child support. We talked about jealousy with a
Mhm.
new woman coming to play. We talked about a lot of
Mhm.
issues. So I want to delve right in. We don't have a lot of time, so we're going to tackle this. I want to talk about first and foremost, just from the woman's perspective, woman's side, what are some things that women generally go through when navigating a nasty breakup from a controlling spouse? Let's start there, and then we're going to delve into it.
Wow, Bismillah. Well, generally, what happens, unfortunately, with controlling men in that particular situation, they'll start with making excuses for, not being able to pay child support. We talked about that. You said you talked about that. Or not being able to pick up the children on their weekends. Custody battles happen. And a lot of Muslims aren't married necessarily legally, but if they are married legally, the courts do determine parental visitation visits. So with that, that makes it more easier for the parents to navigate with the parental visitation schedules. However, we have men who have that way of even trying to, um, you know, interrupt that schedule as well, just to control the woman or try to hurt her. And even when they have moved on, a lot of times they don't want the woman to move on and have a relationship. I've seen that happen, and I've experienced some things myself with the girl's father. Unfortunately, I don't want to get into details,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that type of thing happened, and we were both young. And I think with us being young, I was 23 years old at the time we got married. He was 30 years old. We were all still learning ourselves, and we were still learning, navigating through a divorce after 5 years of marriage. That was a new thing for both of us, and it was very new for him to understand how to deal with visitation when you have another significant other in the play, and that person's in your ear, or that person's trying to control him even. And it's just so many factors when it comes to control. But that is another thing that women experience. And as far as like trying to make sure that the children are on their schedule as opposed to the actual schedule that the court has set aside or that you've agreed upon, that can interrupt the woman's intentions for doing her own thing, or she has some plans, or she has work uh, requirements or things she has to attend to, and that male might interrupt that purposefully just to cause a problem in her life.
So let me just make sure I'm understanding. So are you saying a lot of the issues come into play when agreements are not upheld, right? There's
Yeah,
agreements made, they're not upheld. There
right.
is inconsistencies with, like you
Definitely.
said, parenting scheduling, payments, child support, that happen, that occur, that causes a breakdown. Let me ask this though. Far as when you're navigating out of the relationship, you're the woman in play, you're the primary caretaker, you've been doing it, you've probably had some sort of structure, system, schedule. Husband may or may have not had that in the relationship. You navigate
Right.
post that. Is there an expectation on the woman's side for the husband to now have a schedule and to kind of be this sort of caretaker that you have always been, but maybe he hasn't? I'm just asking, honestly. Do you feel like there's a false sense of expectation that we have as we navigate that transition out?
And most definitely for women, I think we want to be fair for the most part. We want to be fair and just and allow the ex to have their time with their children and allow them a fair time in which we understand them as a person. We understand the individual. So we have to know that that individual has a schedule. He has a work schedule. He usually does X, Y, and Z. So we have to make sure that we're considerate of that. And for me, I was very considerate of that. And even with that, even though I'm such a compromising person, and even though I'm willing to meet you halfway, if you live in North Atlanta, I live in South, I'm willing to drive to meet you to be, pick up the children. All of those factors still remain insignificant when a person is determined to derail the agreement. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I'm seeing is that even with some of my clients that I've worked with that have been divorced, it's still a struggle to just simply respect the other individual's life that they are moving on to, and just to have compassion for them and just to have understanding that they deserve that right to move on, because that you've already made a decision to divorce and you already made a decision to split up, and you have to consider the children's needs. So for me it was difficult as well,
Okay.
navigating through that.
I'm going to bring in a quick question, sis. What is the best way to resolve disputes between parents who are co parenting but have a strained relationship, if not through the court? So she's getting right into like the end of the show, which is a great question. But we can go ahead and just go ahead and answer
Mhm.
this question. But the way to resolve disputes between parents who are co parenting but have a strained relationship in the absence of using the court system.
Well, this is a Muslim asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sometimes, it's definitely um, possible to have some imams are willing, and there's other imams that are not willing. I had an imam that was willing to help navigate through our situation. That is very beneficial, especially if they're like an alpha male imam, or a family friend who's a counselor. Counselors are very good to utilize if that person is willing to sit down and have a mediator,
Yeah.
to help navigate through the difficulties of this transition. And some emails will tell you straight up, I'm not getting involved.
Yep.
That's
I've been
between
told
you
that.
guys and the courts. I've heard that a lot. But it's just definitely beneficial to have a family friend, that someone who's level-headed, that can help mediate the situation, at least in the beginning, until everyone gets accustomed to the schedule and everyone kind of settles their emotions and you know, their fears. It's really all about fear. Everybody's coming
It
from a place of fear. What's going to happen? Who is this person that they're with, that they're moving on with? Who are around my children? And for me, that was the major thing, because when your children start telling you things like, oh, this person is over there at this house, and this person is doing this, and this person is doing that, the first thing a mother wants to do is protect their child. And
is.
so we have this thing where we can get into mother bear mode, and I don't care if that's your father, I don't care if it's your uncle, your auntie, your grandma. We're going to do what we have to do to protect our children. And that can also hinder us from having, a steady mindset of we need
Mm.
to do what's right for the situation.
Ooh, I just want to say, Naima, you just hit a really powerful point
Mhm.
because I was about to go into my next point. Because one of the feedback I
Mhm.
got from sisters when we're just talking about this discussion is like, okay, like, what if you really feel like your children aren't safe? What if you really, what if you've had some maybe abusive experiences with your ex personally? Maybe he didn't do anything to the children, but maybe your
Right.
experiences were toxic and abusive. How then are you still controlling? Are you still in the wrong if you want to restrict your children from their father? So my question is how do you keep your children safe while still allowing or allowing your children to still experience and have a healthy relationship with their father?
Right, right.
That's
That's a
tough.
very difficult situation to be in. First of all, prayer,
Right.
prayer, prayer, and prayer. Um, I prayed for like I think 12 years straight.
Hmm.
I was praying hard for things to just be better. And I still pray for that person, for my ex-husband, for their father. I pray for that situation to be its best. But that is number one. And number two, to have understanding and faith that Allah is going to handle the situation. He's going to take care of those girls no matter what I do. So I had to relieve myself of that burden. And ultimately, Allah relieved it by changing the situation.
Yep.
He did. It's not easy. A lot of people aren't able to do that, but we ultimately have to, kind of leave it in Allah's hands, give that person their visitation rights, give that person their parental rights, and leave it in Allah's hands.
Mm.
Once Allah has revealed to you what is not best for the child, ultimately you will be able to see, and that person will not even really try to push so much on you unless they're really trying to hurt you and hurt the children. And those type of situations where it's more severe, I say, even with Muslims, sometimes we do have to get the state involved with certain abusive situations
Yeah.
to protect the
Yeah.
children.
Right. Like Nadira said, the courts mean nothing if a person is set on being difficult, which can be true, but the courts do sometimes can mitigate the situation. But you're
Mhm.
right. If you're hell bent on being difficult, you're gonna be back and forth in court until the kids are 18. I know people that are
Yeah.
dragged in and out of court until them kids turn 18, and it's a
Mhm.
lifelong struggle. Brother Mike
Yeah.
said, my lawyer advised me to stay out of court really deep since that was money they was not going to see. So navigating that,
Mhm.
like you said, that court system is pretty complex. I love that you said almost like you mentioned relinquishing control, like leaving it over to Allah. Like that is really where your power is. Can we
Yeah.
talk just for a second? Because I think that's so important for women because I think we
Mhm.
hold on to it, like everybody said, trying to stay safe.
Yeah.
That's how we try to stay safe when we can't really control, when we feel out of control within, when we are coming from a place of fear, we seek to control
Mhm.
in the exterior. And ultimately, we can't control anything but ourselves. So, talk about
Absolutely.
the power that you feel as a woman when you relinquish that control and you hand it
Wow.
all over to Allah.
Well, the power is within, your situation. It's revealed in Allah's decree. Whatever starts to happen, you have to pay attention to His signs. You have to pay attention to His relief. He says, after every difficulty, surely there's ease. And I remember every single stage or phase that we went in the situation with visitation. I thought it was the end of the world. I thought it was like the worst thing that could possibly be happening in my life. How can I pass over? I had a 10-month-old baby and a 2-year-old daughter to just hand over to someone that I didn't feel was really emotionally, mentally, or financially stable. And they had someone else, another significant other that was not Muslim, that was not a person that cared for me. And I had to just let that go. And I had to cry my nights to sleep that they were over there. I had to pray. I had to trust Allah. But when that situation came about more ease, Allah showed me every single step of the way that He was there. He was protecting the girls, that He was making sure that they had what they needed. He was making sure that whatever they may have tried to come against me with, that He had my back. He had me covered. So when those things show up, it just gives you so much more faith and trust in Allah each and every time.
Beautiful,
That's
beautiful,
my
beautiful.
experience.
You
Alhamdulillah.
talked about, you brought up something I think is important. You brought up the idea of when women want to remarry, right? So when women want to remarry and there's children involved, that's when all the blocks come, like and some situations, sisters, like I said, I even saw in the other live where they said, just following the sunnah when you remarry, just kind of relinquish your custody to the father. I do want to state I am not a scholar, so please refer to your scholars. That is my disclaimer. But I do want to say this fiqh does not state implicitly that as soon as the woman remarries that she gives custody to the father. I do want to say that because that is very clear. I have spoke to several qadis on this matter. That is not the actual fiqh ruling, and again refer to your scholars. But I do want to come back to you, Naima, and talk about, first of all, what does that look like when a woman is thinking of remarrying and there's a new man butting in the picture? What does that look like on the side of with that ex? What kind of things show up? Like what happens?
Well, it depends on the person. It depends on the person and their mental state.
Yeah.
Some people are not self-aware. Some brothers are not really checking themselves, and they're not really self-critiquing. They just kind of like, they say we're emotional creatures, but there's some instances where some men are more emotional, and that has come up more so now in the society that we live in, as opposed to it used to be years ago. Right. So now we have men that are really petty. They will do things to try to hinder you from moving on. They will make, instead of like, a text about the children. Oh, it'll be a text about, oh, you get married to this person, or I hear you about to do this. And it's like, how did you even find out? First of all, or second of all, like, why does that matter? But if it's a person that you already know, if the individual is willing to try to, sabotage your relationship or sabotage the situation in any way, shape, or form, I have been in a situation myself where I've had to kind of limit the amount of information that was given. And that's a hard thing to do, because me personally, I would like to see, co-parenting happen. I would like to see my, current husband being able to communicate with my children's father. That's something I want. I want the girls to be able to go with their father. I want to be able to have visitations. I want time to myself. I want to be able to do what I need to do for myself. So sometimes people may try to hinder that moving on because they're still not able to let go. And so it depends on the individual. They can do some things, as I've even seen some situations as far as like calling the defects on a woman. That has happened.
Okay, I saw it the other way around, but I didn't know we calling defects on women.
There's a such thing as the drama queen, drama king. There's a drama king aspect to this, where I have seen a man will go as far as to threaten the woman, threaten the new husband's life, and I've seen, like when I lived in Jacksonville, I would start seeing things on the news as far as like men kidnapping their children. We're hearing these stories happening. These are people who are supposed to be God-fearing people, okay, that are kidnapping the children to spite the other parent, not because they're trying to make sure the child's well-being is taken care of, but because they want to hurt the mother. These things are happening. So we have to be very careful and very choosy about the mates that we choose and the people that we, choose to have children with.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that perspective. I also want to, because I think Brother Khalil mentioned some things that were really introspective as far as what men can do. And I often call, like I said, as women, we call each other to the carpet as well. And just in regards of, like I said, one of the things I think we do struggle with, which is being controlling and sometimes manipulative in these post-divorce situations. And not saying that it's coming from a valid place, not saying that it's not. But I do want us to just, talk about a little bit as far as some positive things that women can do in these sort of challenging situations, because I personally can share a few suggestions, and some of these challenging situations, what are some things that the women can do to sort of help and even mindsets about it? I know you mentioned about just leaving it over to Allah, but are there other ways to sort of positively have an impact positively on these situations as it relates to dealing with a difficult ex-spouse?
Oh, right. Definitely. You can do things as far as like getting counseling for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just get some sessions just to kind of get that out. What's the emotions that are happening? What's going on in your life? Get some counseling for the children. Have a session with them individually. Have a session with you guys collectively, so that you can see how they're feeling their emotions um, out. Also, you can make a list of things that you absolutely can do to try to make it easier. We know as Muslims, it never hurts to try to be compassionate and to try to have mercy.
Mm.
Mercy is the most powerful thing that Allah has given the human being. He's so merciful, on us every single day. We do things, we sin, we have shortcomings, but Allah is always merciful. But I've seen that the more I have mercy on individuals that wrong me, the more Allah in turn has mercy on me.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are most powerful. If we can get that as women, to not try to, jump the gun and make a decision, or try to navigate the decisions fully yourself, but to also consider the person that who you marry. You know the person, you know the individual, you know who they are, you know their personality. Consider their fears. Consider that they might have some, shortcomings and some insecurities and some mental health issues. Consider all of that and take heed to that and use that to utilize the type of mercy that you need to have on this person. And Allah will in turn help you. I think that is my opinion. That is my experience. Um, but
Absolutely.
also to just try to make a list of things that you know would help the situation. Can we meet in a place where it's, mutually comfortable for him? Can we meet in a place where everybody is comfortable, even his, new spouse, to make that person comfortable. There are so many different avenues that you can take to just show mercy. And
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, we all know what those avenues are. It's just harder, it's harder to do as opposed to just saying,
It's easier said than done.
that's
Absolutely.
it.
I know for me personally, one of the things I saw just a change, like you said, that compassion and mercy, but like really relinquishing control and respecting
Yeah,
people's boundaries. I think boundaries
right.
are super important. And
Mhm,
not like these hard enforced you can or can't. That's not what I mean. I
mhm,
mean just really
mhm,
respecting people's right to parent. I think as women, we
mhm.
want men to show up and parent the way we think they should or give the type of care. And Allah didn't even design them that way. You know what I mean?
Most
I think that
definitely.
it's really important for us to kind of have mercy.
Yeah,
And I think Brother Khalil talked about understanding the learning curve. As you
yeah,
know, when a man is in a home with a woman who's the primary caretaker or the nurturer, and then he has to be a single parent, is difficult. And I'm not making
absolutely.
excuses, but these are some of the
Mhm,
things that do help. I want to bring in a comment and I have a question, but Sister Latifa Muhammad said, women should step back in the case where a father is capable, able, and desire to, and allow him the space to see how he can manage being the primary caregiver of the children. From experience, it liberates the mother to pursue a life outside of her children, education, career, travel, when there is a father willing to and able to take the reins. What are your
okay.
thoughts about that, Naima?
Well, it also depends on the situation. Does his father work full time? Does he have a spouse? Does he have a nanny? Who's going to watch the children when he's at work? Those kind of things.
So Naima, I
Those
will. I want to try. This is we just having a dialogue. So I just want to say,
yeah.
so is that on some levels a bit controlling? Honestly,
Oh, if the conversation comes up, I mean, I wouldn't say the woman needs to go right into it and say, "Oh, okay, what's going to happen?" No, don't question that. But sometimes brothers just say, "Let me have my kids," and they
right,
don't have a plan,
right,
for what's going to happen with those children. And then next thing you know, they're giving them back to you, and you've already made plans.
right,
So yes, a
right,
brother that's willing and able, that has his stuff together, that is ultimately a great situation to
right.
allow the children to be with their father. And what age? We also have to consider that. Do we have a toddler? Do we have a kindergartner? These children are in different stages of their lives where they also still need nurturing from the mother. Our role as a mother is very important in the early stages of childhood. And I understand that men sometimes they definitely think that they can give the children that, but they absolutely cannot at a certain age. It's like from maybe 9 and 10 years old, especially with the boys, that they start to want to more, challenge their mothers a little bit, or they want to, cling more to the father if the father is around. But it depends on the age of the children and the situation with the men. If my children's father were willing to get his daughters right now, I'll be like, hey, take them, and please. But he's not in that particular situation where he's able to do that. And it's just one of those things we have to really consider and be realistic about the age of the children and the actual capability of the male, the father.
So I appreciate that. I think I'm going to come in a couple comments because this is more interactive and we're just going to be responding to a few. Latifah said, yes, that's controlling because of the same things are present for the mother. And I think you addressed some of that. So we're going to keep moving. Brother Mike says sons are best with fathers after they reach puberty, which is a good perspective. Sister Nadir said, right, Sister Naima, every situation is different. Also, you have to consider the children. I've seen children resent their mother for giving them to their father. That's another point as well. And Sister Rose said, I think it's a matter of how much this man showed the ability to care for them while y'all were together and how much you trust that the man actually can without harming them. And I agree, but I also wonder and this is just, again, I don't have a stake in this. I co-parent my kids too. I'm in the same boat, but I do wonder, are we the judge and jury? Who determines who's the fit parent? If they parent well, it's like, who determines? Are we the ones that determine that? This is just real. I want to know, do we determine that? Is it because on the other side, are they determine if we're fit enough? Because the brother Khalil said, we need to produce the receipts based on the child support. And a lot of us think that's outrageous, right? Because it's like, we're taking care of these kids. We'll have time to produce receipts. But you know what I'm saying? Who's the judge and jury of these issues, Naima? I really want us to think about this. As far as who's if the person is fit to parent, who's the judge and jury? Are we determine if the dad is fit?
Listen. This real. Some people show the children no concern.
Yeah.
When they were in the household. Now, you want to stir them kids. And then when we get divorced, now I need my kids. I need this has happened. Or either, they have this way of, control within the household with the children. The children don't even want to be. We know our children. We should know our children enough to know how close they are with their father, the relationship with the father, what's best for them, as opposed to just pushing them. This is your father, just go. You can suggest. And some children are at the age where they will tell you straight up, Mom, I'm good. I'd rather not go with daddy today. They will let you know. And as a mother, that's the hardest thing for us to do, to just say, hey, well, this is your father, you got to go. You can try to kind of encourage them and nudge them, but children know even more so than we do. So we kind of have to pay attention to the children's behavior and their, response to that situation. How soon is it after the divorce? Is it right away? You want to start sending them for 2 weeks on end, or start with just a weekend, every other weekend, for the person that was not that involved with the child.
Okay, so and Sister Rose, that's my friend, but I just some years Sister Rose says she is the judge of who's fit. I just want y'all to, we gonna make it. But Sister Nadira said she's also tired of women being labeled controlling because we want to protect our children. And Nadira, I agree, it's a fine line there. But at the end of the day, it's only up to us as women, just like men, they got to do their own work. Women, we have to do our own work of being introspective to see how we are exactly showing up. Only we can determine that, if we're really coming from a place of control, because it is more about being manipulative, it's more about what we want, right? Man, it's a sense of entitlement, or if it's coming from a genuine place of wanting to protect them. There's a key difference, and only we can do that sort of work and introspection. But I don't shame people for having that experience because it is a valid one. It's very
Right.
real. And these are dialogues that we don't have enough between men and women, and their
Mhm.
experiences are very different on this field. So I'm glad we're having it, and it's uncomfortable. Um, Bibi said money doesn't say who is more fit for sure. So the sisters be wilding on this conversation. But subhanAllah, mashallah, Naima, I really appreciate this. This is really, really helpful. I did want to go back to Sister Maryam's point because you had mentioned the new significant other, and I think that's super, super important. She said, and I'm going to put it up. Do you recommend introducing the fiance to the ex before marriage? Great question. If a woman is engaged, do you recommend introducing the fiance to the ex before marriage? Come on, Naima. Come on.
In the most normal, natural circumstances, absolutely. Yes, definitely. They should be able to know the individuals that their children are around. Absolutely.
In normal situations.
Normal situations.
Not
We
every,
have to.
but everybody can handle it. And there's some situations I know where some brothers don't want, some of the exes, they don't want to. Like
Right.
they're not ready for that. And then some, but I do think I always say I think it's I always would offer it. Like I think it's the person's
Mhm.
right, that co-parent's
Mhm.
right to know, that significant other who's around your child, just like I would want that same respect and regard. But again, I don't know about the extreme, crazy situations or how you navigate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Second
everyone
question.
has to figure that out for themselves.
Right. It's not even a second one.
I'm
How
not.
should a, how should a relationship be forged between the parents and the children's new stepmom, stepdad?
Oh, as maybe utilizing family meetings, if at all possible, having the father and the mother there present to kind of initiate the meetup, and then get to know one another from there. I think that is a good way to create a positive relationship, especially for the children. You know, it just also depends on the personalities. There's a situation where some new significant other females don't want to meet the ex-wife, and it's just that we have to kind of like come from the best, most highest place to try to create the most positive environment for the children. We have to do the best we can,
Is
and
it,
it's a
I'm
tough road to travel. It is sometimes, when you're dealing with different type of personalities, different insecurities, different. In the beginning, it's very new and it's hard. As a person, I guess, gets to know the situation better and to see that there's no stepping on anybody's toes. There's, no reason to be or to feel challenged. And then it's easier to navigate that situation. But I'm, I just, I've seen some real ugly situations.
no, sis, listen, this is a big one for me. This is one of the bigger reasons why I'm even bringing this episode, because there is a
Mhm.
lot when there's a new partner brought into, or a new significant other brought into the life, and then there's a child involved, and then there becomes like sometimes
Mhm.
a whole war, right?
A
Is it
whole.
difficult as women, as the primary caretakers of those children? You've navigated a difficult, challenging divorce with the father. He now has his parenting time. He brings this new woman into play. Is it really
Mhm.
difficult for the women, for that, caregiver of the children to sort of accept this new woman as stepmom, or having a significant role in their child's life? Is it difficult?
Yes, if the father is not helping to navigate the situation, he's not helping to make that easier for both of the women. He's going to have to be the leader in that situation. He's going to have to make sure that he's taking the necessary steps to make it easier for both women. And that's a leadership role. The male is going to have to take that leadership role and make sure that both parties are able to communicate, that he doesn't get involved, that he doesn't give his opinion too much about the children's mother, that he doesn't give so much opportunity for disrespect on either part. There has to be, like you say, boundaries set in place. There has to be respect in place. there has to be consideration of the children in place. That ultimately the goal is to make sure that the children are in a safe and comfortable situation and visitation.
Absolutely. And BB said, I think people need to take themselves and feelings out of it for the sake of the children. You're absolutely right, BB. Easier said than done, though, because once those emotions get charged and we think of our children and we just feel justified in it. And it's not, we don't, and I just have to be honest, we don't always make the best decision when we're coming from that emotionally unstable place. I mean, we really have to stabilize ourselves and have a high level of emotional intelligence so that we can do what's best for the children. Otherwise, it becomes it sometimes it's about the kids, sometimes it's not. That, you know, and that's just the reality. Sister Nadira said it's sad because people really should be rooting, making dua for their children to have good step parents. That is true. That's something I'm, you know, conscious dua about. You know what I'm saying? Like you want because you expect that, right? Your significant or your ex should be moving on. He should have another life, but you want it to be a good person. So I don't understand when women be like going to war or feel intimidated when that man does choose a good spouse. Because that happens too.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of that. I would love to have a good stepmother for my girls.
But you've been on the other side too. I mean, as well. And I mean, you don't have to get personal, but you also, you know, understand that other side as, you know, a new wife and navigating all of that and those challenges that come in that arena as well. So as women, we deal with a lot on both sides.
Definitely. And as I've grown, because when me and the girl's father divorced, I think I was about 28, 29. You know, I was like a little, I had some jealousy, you know, I had some judgment because I knew the individual a little bit enough to know that that person was not my ideal step parent for them. But I still had to give visitation to their father at 10-month-old and a 2-year-old that I took great pride in mothering, taking care of. And then I didn't think that that person was quite capable of. But ultimately, she relinquished her rights. She didn't want to be a step. She didn't want that role. So I was kind of like, whoa, thank you. But you know, it's just we have to be trusting in the Father and hoping that He will do the best that He can in that particular situation. If He chose a spouse and He wants to, you know, have your children around that individual, then we're hoping that He's making a good judgment call on that. And we're praying that, and that we just have to put trust and faith in Allah first and know that that person knows that individual better than we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, one of those things that's really outside of our realm of control. We just have, like you said, the prayer is the best sort of way to mitigate that because we really can't, nor can they control who we choose to partner with post divorce. So that's just one of those sort of complex situations. When would you recommend a woman to actually use the court system? I saw some talk about it not being a good thing and all of that. When would you recommend a woman to actually utilize the court system here?
When you have, you know, been threatened, when you see that your children's father is using the children, you can tell by the things that they do. Like I said, if they're doing things such as continuously changing their visitation, maybe every other weekend, and they're canceling every single time it's their time to pick up the children last minute, or they're doing things to sabotage your visits, or when they have the children, they're doing things around the children are reporting back to you. There's some suspicious behavior happening at the home. There's some abuse in the home that's occurring in his home. Those are times where you can go back to the courts. If you're married legally or you were married legally, you can easily go, especially in Georgia, because I didn't know that, you know, in Georgia, when you divorce, they automatically do the child support within the divorce decree and all of those things and visitation. So you can automatically take those, you know, those visitation papers back to the judge and ask for them to do like a, what's it called? Contempt of court. You know, they're not doing what they're supposed to do according to the agreement. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so Yeah, so excuse me. Sister Nadira said, I think part of the problem is the thing or things that lead to the divorce are still present in the co-parent entanglement. For instance, if trust was an issue in the marriage, you're not going to overnight, with the flick of a switch, start trusting the other person. That's a
Mhm.
very, very powerful point, Nadira. It is still ever present. That's absolutely true. And we do carry those things post-divorce, and that's how we sort of mitigate those relationships. And then sometimes, like I said, when there's unhealed wounds, or there's situations where, perhaps one person didn't want the relationship to end, and there's a loss of sort of control, emotional control, in a sense, over that other
Mhm.
spouse. That person may seek to control the person emotionally by the child, through the
Definitely.
children, and so that's a definite way to still maintain some sort of emotional control over the adult, through the kids,
Definitely.
and that's very real. That's very real. I
Mhm.
wanted to just show you some appreciation, Naima. This is, went over time a little bit, but I thank you so much
Oh,
for coming on, for doing this live with me.
absolutely.
Conversation being raw and honest. Thank you, audience members. I think this is obviously, we have an actual podcast coming next Wednesday, inshallah. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have, attorney on, we have a coach on, we have real people navigating this. So we're gonna have a panel discussion. But these were lives that help us get us thinking about this issue. As you see, it's super layered. It's super layered,
Mhm.
and there's not a one fit all solution for this. And I appreciate Brother Khalil and you, Naima, for sharing your.
Thank you, Sabria. I just want to tell you, I appreciate everything you're doing with this podcast. Don't stop doing it. Keep doing what you're doing. It's not said enough. This is amazing. This is amazing.
Jazakallah khairan, Naima. Thank you so much for being such a big
Thing.
support. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much. Continue to share the lives, and remember to be here next Wednesday, because that's the big show out of this. We're going to really duke it out with men and women equally on the panel, and talking about all of these issues. And hopefully we can come up with some solutions that are a little bit more practical for us to follow. Jazakallah khairan. Have a wonderful night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum, Naima.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.